So for number 1, well, for adding polynomials, basically all you do is you combine like terms. And combine like terms just means if there's an x here and an x there, you can combine them. You add those coefficients. You do not change the exponents. Okay? I'm going to write that note there because a lot of times people get confused about that. They are only alike if they have the same exponent. The number in front is called the coefficient, and the coefficients will be different. That's what you add. So, on number 1, what I normally do when I add and subtract is I put them on top of each other just because it's easy for me to match them up. If you don't want to match them up and you just want to add them the way they are, you can do that. I'm going to match them up just because I think I like that form and I like seeing it going down. Okay? So what I'll do on the first one, that 5p squared minus 3, I'll leave it like it is. And then this part right here is what I write underneath wherever it goes. So the 2p squared, it'll combine with the 5p squared, so I put it there. And the negative 3p to the third, I'm just going to put it at the beginning. There's nothing to combine it with because there's nothing to the third power. And then I just combine and add right here. And then I just bring it down, negative 3p to the third. 5 plus 2 is 7p squared, and then bring down that minus 3, and so this is the answer. Again, if you don't want to write it that way, you don't necessarily have to. That's where you're going to see me write it, just because I like seeing it up and down like that. Okay, so number 2. Again, this part right here is what I'm going to move, and I'm just going to move it wherever it matches up. So negative 3k to the 4th goes under the 4k to the 4th. Negative 14k squared goes underneath this one. And then the negative 8 will go underneath the 14. And then you just add. So negative 4 and negative 3 makes negative 7. We're not changing the exponents, we're just adding those numbers. 14 and negative 8 make 6. And 3 and negative 14 make negative 11. So with subtracting exponents, it says rewrite as adding the opposite. So let me show you what I mean. Because there's a minus between the two polynomials, I am going to subtract, but instead of like just subtracting, because I might forget to subtract one of the terms, I change the sign and change all the signs, everything after it, and then I combine. So let me show you what I mean by that. Okay? So on this first one, I'm going to change the subtraction sign to adding. But if I change that to adding, I have to change everything after it. So the 3n to the third right now is positive, so I need to change it to a negative. 4n is positive, so I also need to change it to a negative. So if I change this sign, I need to change both of those signs. Okay? And then I'm going to put it underneath and add, just like I did on number 1 and number 2. So negative 3n to the third would go here, and negative 4n would go here. So then 4 minus 4 is 0. So I'm not going to have any n's. That's 0n if you want to write it, but you don't even have to because it goes away. What about negative 3 minus 3? Negative 6. The 4n is negative because this was a minus. So that minus changed to a plus, and then everything after it changed. So number 5, I'm going to change that sign there to a plus. So 6n to the 4th becomes positive, 3n becomes positive, and 8n to the 5th becomes positive. So all three of those changed to positive. They were negative. Okay? So 6n to the 4th would go here. 3n is just sort of separate. There's nothing for it to go to. And 8n to the 5th would go here. And then I am going to add. And I understand that the order might not be the correct order, but it'll be okay. So bring down the 3n, bring down the 3. And then I'm going to combine here. Negative 6 plus 8 is 2. Negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. Whenever you see answers, whenever you do multiple choice or that kind of thing, you will probably see it written from biggest exponent to smallest. That's called standard form, just so you know if you're looking at it that way. But I'm okay with the answer written that way. Questions about adding and subtracting? Okay? Let's talk about multiplying. All right, with multiplying, it says distribute terms. When you did this in Math 1, there was probably a couple ways that you did it. You might have did it with like arrows and drew it, or you might have drawn a little box. Okay? I'll remind you of the arrows, and if you did it with arrows, you can do it that way. But I'm also going to show you the box because I like the box. I'm going to move that up just a little bit. Okay, so on the first one, it says 6v times 2v plus 3. What it says by remember the exponent rule is that you add exponents. So on these problems, you do change the exponents. Okay? If you're combining an x squared and an x, it becomes x to the third. If you're combining an x to the fourth and an x squared, it becomes x to the sixth. Okay? So let's look at it. With the arrows, you take 6v and you go to the 2v and you multiply, which is 12v squared. And then you take the 6v and the 3 and you multiply, and you get 18v. If there's just one term in the front, I'd probably just do the little arrows. Questions? Alright, number 7. This is where I'm going to draw the box. I will remind you real quick, if you did the arrows, if your teacher did the arrows, they probably did like 2n times 6n, 2n times 1, 2 times 6n, and 2 times 1. Does that look familiar? Okay. Let me show you the box, and I want to see if anybody did it this way. There's a box you can make, and you put one of the things on the top, like 2n plus 2, and you put the other one on the side, 6n plus 1. Did anybody do it this way? Okay. So then we multiply this times this. So what will go in that part of the box? 12n squared. Okay, then we do 6n times 2. What's going to go there? 12n. Okay. 1 times 2n. 2n. And then 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, after you make the box, the only other thing that you need to do is write down the answer. Normally, if it's a binomial, which means two terms, binomial times a binomial, normally that middle term will combine because they have like terms. So you would get 12n squared, 2n and 12n is 14n, and then 2. And then that will be your final answer. Okay, so if you see something like number 8 where it says squared, this is the same as saying x minus 3 times x minus 3. Okay, you have to write it out twice and then multiply it. You can't just square the x and square the 3. You actually have to multiply it out completely. Okay, and so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to put x minus 3 on top and x minus 3 on the bottom, and then we're going to combine it. So x times x goes here, x squared. X times negative 3 goes here. Negative 3 times x goes here. And negative 3 times negative 3 goes there. And then we combine that middle thing, so we get x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay, so let's look at it. I saw lots of your answers. 2x plus 5, and then 2x plus 5. You can put the plus if you want, but you don't have to. It doesn't matter. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 5 is 10x. 5 times 2x is 10x. And then 5 times 5 is 25. And then you combine that middle term. So you get 4x squared plus 20x plus 25. When I do this one in the box, the one that has only 2 terms, I usually put it down going this way, just so it's not so long. And then the one that has all the terms, that has a lot of terms, I usually put it on top. And then you multiply the same way. You start with the 4a and multiply it, and then you go to the 2 and multiply it. I'm going to stop and give you a second to try it, and then we'll talk about it. So this is 24a to the third. This is negative 4a squared. 4a times 2 is 8a. And then 2 times that would be 12a squared. 2 times negative a would be negative 2a. And then 2 times 2 would be 4. Okay. Now, whenever it looks like this, you're still going to combine things. And usually they're diagonally. Like these two will combine because they both have a squared. And then these two will combine because they both have just a. And anything that's not circled is separate. So you're going to start with the 24a to the third. And then when I combine the 12 and the negative 4, that would be 8. And then the negative 2 and the 8 would be 6. And then the 4 separate